This is the YHRIM newsletter, Signs of the Times report for the 15th day Shabbat of the 6th month of the scriptural year 5996 since creation. The pagan Roman date is the 9th day of September 2014. Shabbat Shalom, Israel, from the wilderness of the Ozark Mountains. Welcome to this week's Signs of the Times report. We pray that all of Israel who is keeping Yahuwah's true scriptural calendar is having a blessed Shabbat today. There's many events and things that's happening all around the earth. This video is primarily going to focus on some of the current events that's happening right now, and also some of the things that is getting ready to hit, especially in this nation here. Many things happening in nations overseas already. So many events is happening all around the earth. Those of you who watch these things and watch our Facebook page and other ministry outreaches, you know that there's so many events happening right now you cannot begin to keep up with the things that's going on throughout the entire earth. From mass animal deaths all over the earth, floods, pestilence, droughts, earthquakes, effects of the earth's weakening magnetic field, to chemtrails, weather manipulation, the police state, nations being overthrown, the beginnings of World War III, to the curse of Islam, which is the sword being sent into all the nations of the earth. But we know that these things must happen as we are in the last hours of these last days, and Yahuwah's word will be fulfilled. So all the things that's listed in the scriptures is happening in these last days, just as it was written. People that want to be blind to things, they don't want to see anything, they only watch the mainstream news, the mainstream government propaganda, they're not going to see anything. If you don't want to see and don't want to know and understand, you're not going to see anything happening. The mainstream news is keeping a lot of things shut up. They only talk about and publish things that the government wants them to do. They are nothing but the media arm of the government. In any case, in this video we're going to talk about a few of the things that's happening. We couldn't begin to touch on all the events that's going on, but we're going to focus on just a few key events that's happening right now, and also a few events that's getting ready to come upon this nation. There's so many events taking place in the earth. Yahuwah warned us from this word, the signs of the times, the things that would be happening in the last days. He's also sent many of his teachers, prophets, and many other people that he has chosen to warn the people, just as he did in the days of Noah. He tried to warn the people did not want to hear it, they rejected him, they would not repent. It's the exact same things that's happened in these last days. People do not want to hear, they're too busy with their lives. They don't want to hear the things that's coming upon this earth, let alone the things that's happening right now, let alone the things to come. Especially in this nation. This nation is isolated in the respect of they're insulated. Most people are insulated in this nation against the things that's happening outside, and also the things that is about to take place right here in this country. They don't want to hear the things that's going to happen. They don't believe the FEMA camps. They don't believe what the chemtrails is. And all the other multitudes of events, the police state, the militarization of the police forces, and many, many, many other things. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to hear about it. They just want to stick their head in the sand and act like nothing is happening, that nothing is wrong, and so they can continue with their daily lives as they are. They would rather stay in Babylon and stay in slavery than to be in the truth and have to face the things that's about to happen and to get prepared for these events. My grandfather, my Abba's Abba, wasn't able to even read until he was about 60 years old. Before that time, his wife, my grandmother, would read him from the scriptures, and Yahuwah would make him to understand some of the things that was in the verses. However, he wasn't able to take the Bible and read it for himself and to be able to let Yahuwah guide him through the word, to the verses on a particular subject, or whatever he was wanting to show him. But when my grandfather was about 60 years old, he began to have dreams. And in the dreams, it was the same thing. He would dream that he would open up the word and he would begin to read. He had these dreams for several weeks, every night. And when he would wake up from these dreams, he had a Bible that was set on his nightstand, and he would pick it up and he would open it. but he still couldn't read it. Then one night, he had this dream again. And once again, as he had done many nights before, when he woke up, he picked up the Bible and he opened it. But this time, he began to read perfectly. And the verse that he opened to was Yecheskel, or Ezekiel 3:17. Ben Adam, I have made you a watchman to the house of Israel. Therefore listen to the words from my mouth, and give them warning from me. Although he didn't know exactly when the Messiah's return was, he knew that it wasn't far off. Yahuwah revealed to him many things and many of the events that was up and coming, things that was going to be happening. He gave him prophecies to tell the people. People even then did not want to listen. They didn't believe him. They laughed him to scorn about the things that he told them. Just as they do about Yahuwah's truth today. It's no different. Things haven't changed. People still don't want to know. Just a couple of the things that Yahuwah gave him at that time. One of the things that he told people was that bread would go to $1 a loaf, which at that time it was around 15 cents a loaf. People laughed at him. They thought he was crazy. They didn't believe any of the things that he said, nor the teachings that he taught either. One of the other things that he told people was that the hospitals would fill up and be overflowing. Again, people didn't believe that was going to happen. Now today we look around and we see the hospitals literally overflowing. They can't build enough medical facilities, hospitals, and all these things to serve how many people is coming in. That's why you have waiting rooms, huge waiting rooms, people waiting many hours. Even in the emergency room, people wait many hours to be able to even get in sometimes. You go through some of these cities, even these smaller, really what most places would call a town, you know, say 10, 12, 15,000 people. And you'll see so many medical facilities, doctors' offices, clinics, hospitals, and all these things. Even for such a small population as that in a particular area. But of all the things that he told people and prophesied during those days, there's still at least one that has yet to be fulfilled. But it's getting ready to take place very, very soon here in this country. And that prophecy was that one person will have to stay awake and watch while another sleeps. Meaning, there will have to be a 24-hour guard at your house, at your congregation, wherever that groups come together, to protect supplies, and to protect the other members that's there, the members of your family, the other members of the group. That is getting ready to take place in this nation very, very soon. And this is one of the reasons why, if you are by yourself, it's going to be very difficult in the times ahead. Even if you're 2 or 3 people. You're talking about being able to keep guard every night, week after week after week. You can rotate in shifts, but with 2 or 3 people after a couple of days, somebody's going to start falling asleep. It's going to become slack. You're just not physically going to be able to do it day and night. This is why that Yahuwah's people need to be able to come together. This is why he is telling them to flee out of Babylon, to get out of these cities. This nation is the seed of the beast, as we talked about in our past newsletter. It won't just be the United States. This is coming to all nations. As we mentioned earlier in this video, there's so many multitudes of events taking place right now in these last days. Those of you who are watching the events and trying to watch and see what is happening and be aware of the things that's going on, you know well off that it is impossible to keep up with all the events that's taking place. We post many things on our Signs of the Times Current Events Facebook page. However, all the events that I post is just a small percent of the material and information that I go through, and even the amount of information that I'm able to go through is still just a small amount of the events that's taking place all around the earth today. Yet, even with all the major events that's taking place all around the earth right now, there's so many people that are completely blind to it. They don't see anything happening. They don't connect the events that's going on with the scriptures. And most of them don't want to see. They don't want to know. Most people will tell you, well, we'll be here for another 100 years or whatever it is. They don't want the Messiah to return right now. Not during their life. They don't want to interrupt their lifetime. They want it to go on and on just like every generation before. And they don't want the Messiah to return. They want to continue with things as they are. Well, major events is coming to a nation and a town and a street near you. Whether you want to accept it or not, these events are going to happen because it is Yahuwah's appointed time. It's not about our time. It's not about when we want things to happen. This is His time, and everything will take place according to His word at the appointed time which He designated and knew before He ever even created man. Man was appointed 6,000 years. From the scriptural year, this is the year 5996 since the creation of Adam. There is a very short time left for all of the events that's written in the Word to be completely fulfilled. Events are happening very quickly right now, and they will be hitting in this nation and will happen at a very rapid pace. There's a lot of things in the news right now about ISIS, or ISIL as Obama calls them. That is for a whole particular reason and a whole nother story. We did post one article about that on our Facebook page a few days ago. The things that's going on through the news right now, the mainstream news, government propaganda, is that ISIS is an imminent attack from ISIS on the 13th anniversary of 9/11. Those of you who have watched our Facebook page or have done your own research and understand how numerology, how important it is to the so-called elite, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, the number 13 is one of their very significant numbers, along with 9 and 11 as well, and a few other numbers. Numerology is very important in the things that they do and when they time events, when things take place. It may be very outright, like 9/11, or it could be things that's hidden and not as obvious to most people, which none of the numerology is obvious to most people. There's only a few people who has, in recent years, began to understand the things that they use and the reasons behind it. It's Satan counterfeiting the numbers from Yahuwah's word. Numbers, when you read through the scriptures, numbers is very important to Yahuwah. There's many things that's based upon particular numbers and reasons that He uses those numbers. Well, Satan has used the so-called elite and given them their own numerology system. He has counterfeited it. And this is why we've seen so many events happen at particular times, whether it be the time of day, as in the clock, or the calendar date, or many other events. In any case, this is the 13th anniversary of 9/11, and they're very, very much pushing that there's an imminent threat from ISIS. And this is not only through the mainstream media, but you also have generals, former generals, military, FBI, and other sources that is coming out, all of these official sources. All of this is government controlled, and saying that there's an imminent threat from ISIS or an imminent attack. A week or so ago, we posted a rough draft article that was posted to foxnews.com. It was also posted to foxweekly.com. A lot of people thought it was just on Fox Weekly, but the original one was actually on foxnews.com. We posted the original links and things on our Facebook page and also on our Google Plus page as well. And in that rough draft article, it was only a few short paragraphs, because it was an unfinished article. It was about ISIS attacking cities here in America. And the subtitle of it was "History Repeats Itself," and actions taken after the ISIS attacks. The original date of the article was 9/11/2014. This was later changed to 9/11/1899 as they tried to bury it in their archives, and then it was removed from the site completely just a few moments later. Irregardless of the propaganda that's being put out, it is very likely that ISIS or some other terrorist group or government agencies, government hired mercenaries, whatever, could begin attacks here in the United States at any time. How this will begin, I don't know. There's so many events and so many plans and so many things they could do. You can't say which one is going to start or what event they'll choose. They can have multiple events going simultaneously, and that way if one fails or something happens that it doesn't occur, somebody defects, whatever, they'll have other events that will happen. It may begin with the suicide bombers or mass shootings in schools, malls, sports stadiums, churches, any other places where there's crowds that gather. At some point, it could also be an attack on the power grid. Most people don't realize until just a few years ago, the power grid in the United States was actually 3 separate grids. You had the Eastern or Atlantic grid, the Central or Midwest grid, and then the West or Pacific grids. A couple of years ago, they actually tied all 3 of these power grids together. They done this under the claim that it would provide more energy and make more system redundancies. So if something failed, another system could come in and compensate. The problem with this is now, and the whole reason that they actually done it, is if anything happens to one of these grids, anything major, it will cause a blackout across all 3 grids, because now that they're tied together, if a major section of a power grid is taken down, the other 2 grids will try to compensate. However, they won't be able to if it's a large enough power outage. What will happen with that is by trying to compensate, it will actually drain the other 2 grids to the point that transformers and other things and breakers will shut down and kick out. So an attack in any one of the grids, major attack, it'll shut down the grid across the United States. Now, could this be temporary? Yes. If they attack certain substations and things, it could only be temporary. They could do an attack to the point that it causes a brownout or rolling blackouts, which means that the power could be on for so many hours a day and then it shuts off so they can turn on the power someplace else or whatever. There's many obvious problems if that occurs. Also, another thing that most people don't realize is out of the thousands of substations and power stations across the country, there is 9 key substations. Yes, the number 9 again. Across the country, that if these 9 particular substations was taken out, it would take the entire power grid down for the entire country. And from FBI reports and other reports, they're saying it would be a minimum of 18 months before power could be restored. How could these substations be taken out? Well, small explosive devices, that would do it. Or even, like we've seen substation attacks in the past year or two, they could also be taken out by a sniper or somebody with a rifle, in other words. What happens is that they can shoot these transformers. Inside these transformers is large amounts of oil. This oil is what keeps the transformer cool. When they shoot the transformers and put enough holes in there, this oil drains out. When the oil is gone or down low enough to a point, the transformer overheats and burns out. That would take out that substation. So it's really that easy to be able to take down the United States power grid. They have actually told people over national news, I saw a video myself, I don't know if he was a power expert or a scientist, but he actually stated on this video, on this program, that there is software and programs available right now that pertaining to the U.S. power grid that can detail and locate these exact 9 substations that's key to the U.S. power grid. So, and this software is available apparently through the internet. So anybody could get this software, find out where these locations are, and groups could be dispatched or what have you. Now, why is this software available? You think it'd be under national security. Well, it should have been. They want events to happen, or they want to have the excuse or ability to say, well, these people found out this way. You know, this is how it was known. Even with a rolling blackout situation in the power grid across the United States, a rolling blackout means that you'll have power at some point, but at some point your power is turned off so it can turn back on for somebody else, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. However, even with a rolling blackout, you don't know what that time period will be. It would depend on how much damage was done to the power grid and how much they're able to even turn on. You could be without power for hours, possibly even days, depending on other situations. Depending on where you are close to the substations, there'll be areas that won't get power at all. Without power, none of the refrigeration works. This winter, the heat's not going to work if you have any kind of electric heat. Even propane furnaces and stuff require electricity not only to fire, but also to use the fans and blowers. It will not operate without electricity. Now, there is a few propane wall heaters that will function because they don't require power. Wood burners also don't require power, which is why the EPA has been attacking all kinds of wood stoves, requiring new regulations and everything else, and trying to ban all of the older wood stoves. So even in a rolling blackout situation, you're in this country is totally dependent upon electricity, and without it, many things is not going to function, including the fuel pumps. Stores, food, supplies, things will could give ad very quickly, even in a rolling blackout. Any one of these events could happen very quickly or even simultaneously. You could literally be at work one day, you could be relaxing at home, or you could get up in the morning and you flip on the TV and there'd be breaking news, interrupt the program, and state that ISIS or whatever other terrorist organization has attacked the United States and detonated nuclear devices in multiple cities across the nation. We've talked about this extensively in the past few years on our Facebook page, the Restoration of All Things Network, and also in past newsletters. I do fully believe that this event will occur at some point. I do not know when. I don't know if it'll be the initial event or if there'll be smaller events previous to it and eventually get to this size of event. But I do fully believe that it is coming for many reasons, which we've went over before in the past. But if you are one of the people that's able to get up and turn on the news and see these things on the news, you're blessed in the respect of obviously you weren't in these cities when it happened, and on top of that you also have power at that point. How long you have power after these things happen, I don't know, for many reasons. One regard, if a city is nuked or destroyed in any way, the drain on the power grid, especially these major cities, the drain on the power grid will produce strain on surrounding areas and could black those areas out as well. That can also have a ripple effect and eventually shut down major sections of the power grid or even the entire power grid. Again, it could be temporary, it could be long-term. Depends on the situation, exactly what takes place. In any case, I do believe that at least in the beginning, the power grid will be up for most sections of the countries that is not affected by the initial outflow for the reason that the government will be able to put out the propaganda. If it goes down at first, it may come up shortly afterward again, again for the same reasons. Another event that can occur is an EMP, and this can be created either by nuclear weapons or an EMP device. One large nuclear weapon detonated at 300 miles altitude over the United States or smaller nuclear weapons detonated at lower altitudes or EMP devices. Both of these things could wipe out the power grid from the East Coast to the West Coast, not only the United States, but also parts of Mexico and parts of Canada as well. Not only would it wipe out the power grid, depending on your location, in respect to these detonations, how close that you are to them, it can also burn out anything with a circuit board, anything with a chip, basically. What does that mean? That means anything with a circuit board, anything with a computer would no longer operate. Whether it be literally your computer, vehicles, all newer vehicles have computers in them. Most electronics in the house has computers or circuit boards in those. TVs, all of these things would be burned out permanently. There is no repair for this. The power grid itself, what it does to the power grid is just like the Carrington event, which was a solar flare that came into the United States in the 1800s. It literally set the telegraph lines on fire. It burned down telegraph offices. It electrocuted telegraph operators who were actually operating the telegraph at that time when it hit. Back then, they didn't have the electronic infrastructure that they did today. The telegraph was mainly the thing that was affected. Today, everything is electronics. This country can't function without electronics. All stores, cash registers, fuel pumps, everything is electrical and computerized. So if an EMP hits, all of this stuff is gone and there's no way to operate or function these items. What will continue to work? Simple electronics. Most batteries will not be affected, including most car batteries. Simple motors. Generators. Generators is actually an issue. Some generators may work, some may not. The reason being, if there's generators that have smart controllers and computerized circuits, those won't function if they're hit by an EMP because they will be burned out. A generator that's pretty much just an engine and an electrical generating motor, those should continue to function. Anything like that is still a possibility of being vulnerable, especially if you don't know exactly how it's built. Again, all of these things are dependent upon how close are you to the initial EMP blast. Again, a large-scale nuclear weapon detonated at a high altitude above the United States could burn out everything coast to coast, or it may only burn out extremely sensitive things like computer or a computer in a vehicle. Again, some things may function, some things may not. It all depends on the exact scenario and exactly what happens. An EMP device or a nuclear weapon can be launched from a submarine, a ship, or a satellite. And yes, don't think that they don't have satellites with nuclear weapons loaded on them. Even North Korea has a satellite up there, which the news claimed to be a research satellite or whatever. Do you really think North Korea is going to waste their time launching a research satellite? We posted about that back some time ago now. The main point about all of this is all of these events are being pre-planned ahead of time, and they can begin at any day. Exactly, like I said earlier, exactly which event will happen first, how they will escalate, what period of time, I do not know. I think it'll be over a short period of time though. Again, we're seeing a lot of push in the propaganda and from the government especially about ISIS and an imminent attack being inevitable from agents or members of ISIS here in the United States. they are here. That's not a question. Not only have they been flooding the southern border for years, like we told people and showed 5, 6, 7 years ago. Again, at that time, we also showed that there were, at that time, approximately 30 plus militant Islamic training camps all across the United States. Since that time, how many more has been created and set up? I do not know. I think that latest figure was from around 2007, 2008. So they've had plenty of time to expand their operations. There was a Christian news network that actually went out and filmed these places, showed the things that was going on, was actually run out of some of these places and threatened. They actually took the video to the FBI and other organizations, and they were told that nothing could be done due to national security reasons. If that makes any sense, you can't do anything about a terrorist organization operating on U.S. soil due to national security. In any case, all these things are happening. They've been happening for a long time. People has not known about them. The people that heard about it, most people didn't believe it, even though that they had it on video showing it. The U.S. government created ISIS just like they created Al-Qaeda. They trained them, they funded them, and they were the ones who gave them the weapons. And even weapons, as they've been taking over these countries, there's been weapon stockpiles that they've taken control of. That's not by accident. They've got everything from tanks to even jet aircraft now. And there is some reports that captured pilots in Libya are being forced to train their members on how to fly these planes. What that's going to be used for, I do not know. I know that there is reports of 11 airliner aircraft being widely circulated through the mainstream news and other sources, government as well. And they're saying that that they are afraid of a repeat 9/11. Which is ironic, since the airliners that hit the World Trade Centers was not commercial airliners, but rather military planes. Which 9/11 was a complete false flag attack performed by our own government, from which they used to implement all the laws, the militarization of the police, Patriot Act, NDAA, NDRA, and much, much more. In any case, they're really pushing that these 11 airliners could be used in attacks, whether it be here or overseas. Could that happen? Yes, it's possible. Personally, at this point, in my opinion, it may just simply be a misdirection. Get people to look at that, and then events could come in by vehicle or mass shootings or suicide bombers or nuclear weapons or anything else. All of these events that they are setting up and getting ready to happen and create is being used to further their agenda. They are preparing these events to be able to implement the things that they want to do, the takeover and destruction of this nation and the slaughter of the people here in this nation. One particular article that I just posted on our Facebook page last night, the U.S. Army report urges preparation for troops to occupy New York City and other major mega cities, or global cities as they call them. They also said that the Army could be called to act in one of these places tomorrow. And basically what it is talking about in these reports from the military is that the Army and the military in general needs to be prepared to go into these cities and take immediate and total control. What does that mean? Well, basically it means martial law. They're talking about total control of the city. No one goes in, no one goes out. They secure the entire city, etc., and so on. They can do this for a multitude of reasons. They could claim national security. They could claim that terrorists are trying to travel between cities or whatever. If you've seen any major events like nuclear weapons go off in some of these cities, the other cities that are left, the military could go in and control them under this guise of national security and protecting the city, and etc. and so on, to stop terrorists from entering the city, or whatever other excuses that they could come up with. As I stated earlier, in this day and hour, any of these events could happen literally at any time. Listen to the warnings and the teachings that Yahuwah has been putting out for many, many years through his prophets, his teachers, and his chosen leaders. As when these events begin to hit, for instance, our website, Facebook page, YouTube channel, all this information, and anyone else that is teaching truth and has this information out to you on the internet, it will be gone. It will no longer be accessible, either because it was removed or for other reasons we'll get into here in a moment. When these events hit, or possibly even before, the beast system will not allow any type of alternative news, or being organizations or even just individuals, to tell people what is really taking place. So you must get the information now, know it, learn it, understand it, so that when the events happen, you'll know what's really taking place behind the scenes and not just what the news government propaganda is telling you. This is why all the measures like the internet kill switch and many of the other things has been put in place to control the flow of information. The government controls the people through information, which means when they implement these things, they could take the internet down completely, or they could restrict it to the point that only specific websites still operate, such as mainstream media, whether it be Fox News, CNN, ABC, etc., or government websites. And when these events begin, this can all happen very suddenly. And it can occur at any time, as we stated before. It could even begin while you're watching this very newsletter here on YouTube. When these events begin to hit this nation, things are going to happen very, very, very
Due to reasons of national security, Internet security restriction protocols has now been activated by the Department of Homeland Security under direct orders from the President of the United States. Please tune to your national news station for further information, or continue monitoring this website for a message from the President addressing the nation.
Yeah, it could happen just that fast. Yahuwah has commanded in His Word that we are to flee out of Babylon. This is why there's so many signs of the times that's occurring all over the earth right now in these last days. It is a warning to get out of Babylon before it falls and before the plagues come upon it. This is why Yahuwah spoke in Gilyanah, Revelation 18:4. And I heard another voice from the Shamaim saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, so that you receive not of her plagues." If you don't get out of Babylon, out of the cities, until after the events hit, then if you escape at all, you will leave like Lot. Many things are taught about Lot. There's many people, especially in the church system, they say, "Oh, I'll be like Lot." In other words, they'll say, "Oh, well, the angels will carry me out of the city and I won't have to do anything. I don't have to prepare. I don't have to worry about anything," or whatever else. You don't want to be like Lot. You want to be like Abraham. Abraham did not go into Sodom and Gomorrah. He stayed away from the city. He stayed out of the cities. It's the same thing in these last days. The cities is a concentration of the government powers. It is also the concentration of the sin of this nation and every nation. The cities is going to be the first and the most affected places in any of the nations when Babylon falls. There's a lot of people who say, "Well, I don't have to leave the city. You know, I have to stay here because of jobs, houses, There's a lot of people who say, "Well, I don't have to leave the cities. Yahuwah has blessed me with jobs, houses, cars, businesses, lands, whatever it may be." They use many excuses of why that they need to stay in the cities. The fact is, Yahuwah is not going to give you things to keep you in Babylon when that goes against His Word. No matter what you have, or a walking away from, Yahuwah's word stays the same. The commands is to flee out of Babylon. If you do not flee out of Babylon, flee out of these cities before these events happen, then if you are able to escape at all, you will leave like Lot. Which means with the clothes on your back, and you will also lose immediate family members. Just as he did. He lost his wife. So whether it be your wife, your husband, your children, if you stay in these cities until after the events hit, you will lose immediate family members. Let alone having to endure all of the things that will be falling upon these places. All of the things that you will have to face because of not leaving beforehand. This is why Yahuwah spoke in his word and commanded that his people come out of Babylon before these events fall, before the plagues fall. He don't want us to receive the plagues that Babylon is going to get, but it's still our choice if we want to leave or if we want to stay. He's not going to force us. He's not going to make us. He simply told us in his word, and his word remains. It will happen. It is written. These events is about to hit now, here in the last hours of these last days. We are in the Great Tribulation, and we have seen many events happening overseas. These people have already been enduring many things, but this nation is about to receive the plagues, and the judgment of Yahuwah is getting ready to happen and fall upon this nation. The last thing I'd like to talk about today is the turn the other cheek mentality. Many people today believe that whatever comes against you and whatever happens, you should, quote unquote, turn the other cheek. Yes, that is written in the word, but it is not taken in the context of what Yahuwah was stating. If that had happened in Moshe or Yahusha ben Nun, Joshua ben Nun's day, Israel would have never taken back the land. Not only that, every time an enemy came against them, if they took that stance and said, well, we're not going to fight, we're just going to stand here and do nothing, then Israel would have been totally destroyed. It's the same thing in these last days. Israel was never commanded that you are not to defend yourself, that you're not to protect your family. As a matter of fact, it's every man's responsibility. They are to protect their family, they protect their fellow Israelites, whether it be their other extended family, friends, members of a congregation, whatever it may be. That is the men's responsibility. And in this day and time, this nation, the men in this nation, and the people of this nation has been nearly destroyed by the pharmaceuticals, by the foods, the water, the air, and everything else. They have tried to make this generation as weak and as sick as they possibly can because of the events that they want to bring upon this nation to be able to destroy and slaughter the people of this nation and many other nations. The United States is probably worse than most others in these regards. But Yahushua HaMashiach never commanded anywhere in his word for us to be defenseless or just to be killed at the leisure of Satan or the world. As a matter of fact, in Luke 22:36, Yahushua HaMashiach stated, "He that has no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one." In other words, a sword, a way of protecting yourself and to fight, is more important than a garment that you wear on your back. And to this point, his disciples, Kepha, Peter, he was carrying a sword when the guards, the Roman soldiers, came to take Yahushua HaMashiach away. Before they took him away, what did Kepha do? He pulled his sword and struck off the soldier's ear. Yahushua HaMashiach healed the soldier and told Kepha to put away his sword. The reason he told him there is because that wasn't the time. Things had to be fulfilled. He had to go through what he went through. He gave his life for his people, his bride, his wife. So those things had to be fulfilled at that time, which is why he told Kepha to put his sword away. Very soon, people in this nation is going to be facing the militant Islam. The things that you see on TV, and many more things, such as the articles that we've posted on our Facebook page. Many atrocities and mass slaughterings that's going on overseas is going to be right here in this nation. When you face militant Islam, you do not and cannot surrender. There is no such thing as surrender. They may take you temporarily, but then you and your family will be tortured, and eventually you'll be killed. That is not a question. It's not a question of if or possibility. It will happen. You cannot surrender to the Muslims, Islam, or the government beast. The outcome will be the same. In Amos chapter 9, verses 9 and 10, "For see, I will command, and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like corn is sifted in a sieve, yet the least kernel of grain shall not fall upon the earth." In verse 10, "All the sinners of my people shall die by the sword, who say, the evil shall not overtake nor find us." That particular verse right there mirrors exactly what is being taught and stated by most people in this nation. Most people in this nation, especially the entire church system, do not believe that they will have to face anything, that the evil, all of the events that's happening, won't come upon them. It won't happen here, not here. Or that they will be raptured before the events take place. In either case, it's a lie from Satan. He has used it through the government, in the government using the clergy, which is all the big name false preachers all over the TVs, just as Hitler done, to put the people at ease and to put them asleep. The sword mentioned in Amos verse 10 is also called the curse in other verses, which if you say the curse in Hebrew, it is ha-Allah. It is Islam, the Muslims. That is the curse that's being poured upon the earth right now. This is also reiterated by the words of Yitzhak, or Isaac, in Bereshith 27:40, when he's speaking to Esau. "And by your sword shall you live, and shall serve your brother, and it shall come to pass when you have the dominion, that you shall break his yoke from off your neck." It all started in the garden with Cain killing Abel, and with the hatred that Esau had for Jacob. It's still happening today. The hatred that the Muslims have for Israel and all the nations that they're in, whether they be from the tribe of Yehuda or not. This is all being done the same from the beginning till now, because Satan thinks if he can kill the descendants of Abraham, Israel as a whole, then he can break Yahuwah's word and he won't have to go to hell. This is what has been his goal this entire time, was trying to break Yahuwah's word. And because he hates Israel, because the true body will replace him in heaven, he has tried to kill and destroy Israel as a whole and in entirety. This is why the events has transpired over and over and over again, all throughout history. But now we see these things happening on a wide global scale. As Yitzhak prophesied to Esau, the descendants of Esau now have the dominion of the kingdom. They are taking over the nations. They are establishing their caliphate. Their hatred for Jacob, who was renamed Israel, has remained. It's being fulfilled right now in these last days. The only way that we as Israel can escape the wrath of Esau and Satan is if we flee into the wilderness, where Yahuwah promises to protect his people and will cause the earth to swallow up the flood. That is to say, those who are sinned against Israel, even Israel in the wilderness, note that even Satan and the flood even comes against Israel that's in the wilderness. What do you think is going to happen to those that's in the cities if they're coming against those that's in the wilderness? In the wilderness, Yahuwah will protect Israel. He will cause the earth to swallow up the flood. To swallow up the flood means through death. He's going to destroy the armies, kill the armies through some means, whether it's because Israel has to fight and destroy them, just as they did in the days of old, or because he sends his Malachim and slays them, or creates an event to destroy them. I don't know. The word doesn't say. But the point is that the flood of Esau is being sent out of the Middle East, and they have dominion there. And right now, this same flood is now here in this nation and in all the nations of the earth. It will very soon no longer be just news articles you read or what you see on TV. It will be in your nation, in your cities, in your town, on your street, and at your door very, very soon. If you do not flee from the cities before these things hit, even if you're blessed to escape after it hits, as we stated earlier, you'll leave like Lot. You'll leave with the clothes on your back, and it's very, very likely that you will lose immediate family members in the process, if you are able to escape at all. Kol Yisrael, keep watch, trim your lamps, for the return of Yahushua HaMashiach draws very near. Salah and Shalom.